Having fun yet? Welcome back to JoshE's World. I'm your host, Josh. And, like promised, I actually prepared something for today. Yay! Josh did some work. I have, see? I have my outline. I don't know if you can see that. I actually wrote an outline for the show. There's an actual outline written for the show, see? Multiple pages. So I actually have a plan to keep myself organized today. In fact, we even have a trip to the JoshE World PowerPoint Theater. That is right, folks. We are going to have a trip to the PowerPoint Theater. Okay, so first up, what are we doing today? Today we are actually going to dive into my theory of societal ideological identity. We're going to recognize the first 5 functions of using a societal ideological identity. Really, what we have to remember about when trying to evaluate an individual or a group of individuals on this, first of all, I want to make this point first and foremost before any other disclaimers, because I have a whole list of disclaimers here, that it's like an onion. It's layered. And right now, we're at one layer, utopia. There's a utopian vision, right? And people say there's a left-wing version of a utopia and there's a right-wing version of a utopia. Well, what does that even mean? That is what we're going to discover today. We're going to go through these 5 functions and we're going to look at how each of them are viewed as a left-wing, in general left-wing perspective and in general right-wing perspective. And then we're going to look at their extremities of each one of these 5 functions. So that is, I'm so excited for this. You have no idea. This theory, I've been playing with it, and oh my god, when you start to apply it, it's amazing. You have so many epiphanies. Okay, but why am I doing this to begin with? Why did I think up this theory for myself? For the fun of it, to start a YouTube channel on. Why would I do this? Why would I want to be able to recognize somebody's ideology towards any particular group or society and try to understand why they believe their actions are justified no matter what the situation is? Well, I recently, finally, got my bachelor's degree, and I got my bachelor's degree in marketing. So, really, when you approach socio-psychological issues like evaluating a society or analysis of an individual's behavior within that said society and things like that, through a marketing point of view, it's normally on a way to communicate to that person. You know, you're not necessarily trying to understand the behavior necessarily. You're trying to understand it enough to be able to communicate a message to that person in the most proficient way. Right? So, when I look at society, you have to think about that I'm looking at these factors and these functions and everything else in society in a way that shows me how to better communicate with somebody. Right? But, you know, why ideology? Why right and left? Why all this political-ish type nonsense? I'm a marketing major, not a political science major. I will repeat that. I am a marketing major, not a political science major. So if my theory is completely asinine, and I'm completely off base, based on actual evidence and data and everything like that, then I apologize. There might be stuff out there that disproves me. If you can disprove me easily enough or anything like that, just let me know in the comments below. But also, at the same token, because I'm not a political science major and political science is more of a hobby for me, which is why the focus on political science is because political science is kind of a hobby for me. I'm kind of a political science junkie. If there is evidence out there that supports, and my theory has already been thought up by somebody else, and there's 101 books written on it, and I just don't know they exist. And I'm going to be honest with you, that is where the point and case is on that moment right now. Now, with that said, I have looked up some of these theories and concepts and tried to find evidence for or against, really, that have already been done by somebody. And I can't really find it. And since, I don't have any money whatsoever, I'm not going to be able to fund any kind of study to really look at my theory and see how it performs within a society. So that's where I'm going to ask you all, everybody who's coming here that watches this, apply it. Think about it for yourself. Use it as a measure of your own personal interest and growth and judgments and things like that. Because really, all these things, I find if you figure it out for yourself and you figure out why the opposite can occur, then you can find common ground understanding with almost any belief. And that's where we're going to kind of get there. And then the last disclaimer I really want to put in here is the terminology that I have selected to try to describe some of these terms and thoughts and concepts may or may not be the most adequate term. So please, if you can think of something that will give a closer version to the definition that I'm looking for, or something like that, or, you'll kind of see what I did with it, I hope, as we go through here. But, that is all of my disclaimers. Now, ladies and gentlemen, JoshE World's PowerPoint Theater. And now, JoshE World's PowerPoint Theater presents the Societal Ideological Identity Theory, which is to try to get a better understanding of the left and the right. This is going to be part one of hopefully a long series of videos. It may not be, my next video may not be a follow-up to this one necessarily, but we'll get into that as we go along. We're going to be looking at 5 dynamic societal functions in this video, which are really the building blocks of trying to create and understand your own ideology, and the ideology of others, and the ideology of groups, societies, and just about almost anything. It's kind of fun. It's really fun. It's going to be really interesting. So where we're going to start is, really in my last video, I was really confusing all over the place. So I kind of wanted to just kind of go back to what I'm trying to do here and what I'm trying to define, and actually try to create definitions for some of these terms. So what is societal ideological identity? It's an individual's ideal view of how a group or society behaves on a spectrum of 5 functions. And you can use how they behave on that spectrum of 5 functions to determine how they are going to behave within that group or society, and in general, where their morals and ethical principles lie. Really interesting this way. And really, the morals and ethics we'll probably get into more when we deep dive into each one of the functions individually and we look at the broader aspects of them. But for right now, we're going to go on. But what we do have to make some assumptions to a group or society, or to just overall everything that we apply this to, right? There's one more that I think I came up with since I made this list, in fact. But there's these 5 assumptions you have to make. These first 2 over here, what they're really saying, because I'm not going to just sit here and read you slides, because it's not what you're here for. But what they're really saying is nobody in the society, group or society, no individual within the society is trying to destroy it, and everybody within that society is actively trying to make it better. They're trying to pull it towards their ideological viewpoint for that society. That is basic core idea. So there's nobody trying to disrupt the society. No individual that you're evaluating is trying to actively destroy the group or society that they're in. And two, they're actively trying to pull the group or society closer towards their own individual ideology. Okay. And with that said, you have to remember that people may have a different viewpoint depending on the group or society they're looking at. They may want a family unit that has more of a right-wing mentality for how it's structured and laid out and ran and organized according to these functions. Or it could have more of a left-wing ideal of how a workplace should be, for example. Or vice versa, it could have a left-wing idea of how a family unit should be run, but has a right-wing concept how a workplace should be run. Now, everybody has multiple different views, but you have to remember every group in society is unique, and each individual is unique in that group or society. We all wear our masks, right? And our masks really determine how we want these societies to function. What is the ideal way for them to function? And remember, all these dynamics are in flux at all times. So they're changing. They're in constant change. Now, we'll get into further looking at these studies, when we start to dig deeper into this theory. Because right now we're just kind of breaking the surface. But when we start to dig deeper, we start to realize that people have more of a principled stance on certain things and more of a fluid stance on other things. So, and the more extreme I find, the more locked in place people become. So, and it's harder to break somebody out of an extreme, and I'm hoping that this whole thing will help people break out of those extremes. Both extremes are bad. And we're going to kind of explore a little bit on extremes today for each one of these 5. We're going to kind of see why they may seem like they have some benefit, but because society is made up of different people with different values and different ideals, both extremes you cannot account, can never equate to encompass the moral character of everybody within society. And we'll kind of show that. We'll kind of show where there's some balance. Because it could also just be, you gotta just look at different things. And it's a much bigger theory. And then goes to the next really big point is the more people that a group or society has, the more conflict of ideology it's going to have, because each person has their own unique ideology. You have to think about these 5 functions that we're going to talk about are a spectrum, and everybody's on a unique space in the spectrum on their own, and then they're on a unique space in each of the 5 spectrums, and then they move, and basically there's always somebody going to be more left than you and always somebody more right than you on every issue. And as you move, you just kind of change positions, and there's still always going to be somebody to the left and somebody to the right of you. So, when you start to make, you can start to go, okay, these are acceptable viewpoints, and you can say, okay, the people that are within these groups are acceptable. So the more people within a society, the more that acceptable viewpoint has to move outward. And that would be the Overton window. And then the last one that you put on, that I don't have on here, that is more for the analysis portion. So when we actually get into how to use this as an analysis tool, we'll talk about more, is you have to remember some groups in society people enter into voluntarily. They want to be a part of that group or society. Other groups or societies, people are just in. You're born into it, you're forced into it in some way that you do not have a choice that you're a member of that group or society, but you have to participate as a member of that group or society. So you have to look at the ones that you want to be in are probably going to have less conflict than the ones that you are just placed into. Like your country of birth or your, whatever, that type of thing, you're just placed in that. I was that's another disclaimer. My point of view, I don't know if I've said, I am an American. So my point of view is from American politics, of American left, American right. I don't know if that makes any difference, but that is in there now, and that is my assumptions. And now